Good morning, everybody. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. It's a pleasure having you today. We have two great speakers today. They're going to come and talk a little bit about their business. So I'm glad that you could join us. We have Diego and Lindsay with Alphas Alliance. So without further ado, let us welcome you guys. It's all yours.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me just
everyone
share my screen. Okay, can you all see that? Okay, I guess you can. All right, so hi everybody. My name is Lindsay Mayer. I am a co-owner of Alphas Alliance, and I'm also a Division I softball coach at the College of Holy Cross in Worcester, Mass.
And I'm Diego Ibarra. Thank you all for having us. I also coach at the Division I level at UNC in Wilmington, North Carolina.
So just to start, we want to thank you guys for having us here today and just kind of allowing us to be a part of this awesome community. I know you mentioned before that we have done previous 1 Million Cups, but every presentation that we give is very unique and special, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback so far. So we're looking forward to presenting with you guys today. So who we are, Alphas Alliance started in January of 2021. We were encouraged by our boss. We previously worked together at Hofstra University in Long Island. And our boss is a softball Hall of Fame coach and one of really the most well-known softball coaches to really ever be a part of the game. So we simply started out with the idea of what can we do to make things simpler and easier for the lives of coaches, just because our day-to-day lives are filled with a lot of administrative work that people who aren't really involved in the world of not just college athletics, but really athletics in general, they don't really see. So it's a lot of administrative work that comes with the job. So let's say like itinerary creating, schedule creating, dealing with equipment sizing, equipment ordering, food ordering, recruiting all throughout the year. So just a lot of administrative tasks that take up a lot of time. So when it comes to college athletics specifically, aside from really football and basketball, just because those are the sports that are really bringing in money, the sports world is really behind when it comes to technology and just kind of like incorporating it into your everyday. So as coaches, we realized that there are some companies out there. There's two companies really out there that provide similar things to what we do at Alphas, but they miss the mark in a very large way just because their products are not specific to a coach's life, really. It's more for like an organization or like a large business, but they really miss the mark when it comes to providing specific functions that are beneficial to coaches. So throughout this presentation, we'll kind of walk you through our past year, which was our first year in business, and kind of like our upcoming plan. So Alphas Alliance in general is an easy-to-use software toolkit powered by the latest technology to help athletic programs, coaches, and athletes take their game to the next level. And ultimately, we want to make the athletic journey more meaningful for coaches and players by using AI and automation to assist with daily tasks, so it will help a coach save time. So our first product that we launched this past year is called Alpha Signs. And what you see on the screen is basically an example of what we create. So in baseball and softball, players and coaches use a wristband that they put on their forearm. And this is for coaches to relay signs to players so that they either know what pitch is coming, what offensive sign to use, what defensive shift to be in. So it's a way for the coach to use a series of numbers. So let's say 111. And that will either tell them the pitch, whatever card they're using, that'll tell them the pitch, and it'll allow them to relay signs that the other team isn't able to pick what's going on. So this is our first product we released. We saw this kind of as like an entry to market because the companies that are out there are really missing the mark. So because I was the pitching coach at Hofstra and Diego also worked there, he had more of a tech background. So we kind of worked together to make a better product and a better kind of software so that we could give it to coaches and make it offer it to coaches. So we really wanted to focus on making it easy to use, not clunky. And like I said, just really focusing on the user experience and making sure that it's interactive and you are able to follow along and it's easy to use. So we currently sell this product for $249 for the first year. And then each year after that, it's a $99 renewal fee.
So these are some of the programs that currently use Alpha Signs. These are some of the action shots. And currently at the moment, we have about 21 out of the top 25 Division I programs that are currently ranked in the country using them. And if you include the baseball side, we have about like 37 or so out of the top 50 combined that support Alpha's Alliance. And as you can see, some of these are some of the best programs. One of the privileges that we have in our growth that has been very special to us is that everything is based on our relationship. So the fact that we are coaches, we've been fortunate enough to create some relationships with the best and the brightest minds. It's also a result of us being in the game and trying to get better ourselves. So, for example, Cindy Bristow, she's probably the world's most renowned pitching and education instructor, along with Coach Larissa Anderson at Missouri. Between those two, those are probably two of the most influential coaches out there. And along that has allowed us to gain access to many more coaches because we are on the cutting edge of pushing the boundaries of thought and everything. So when we went to, we released our product in July of 2021. It was a informal, we unveiled it in July. It was kind of a soft launch. When we went to the National Fast Pitch Coaches Convention in November, late November, we did a formal unveil of the product. And what we noticed is that we were the only collegiate coaches at the convention that also had a software that was geared to the sport. So that was a very humbling moment for us. And the fact that we have the best and the brightest backing us, it just kind of put everything into perspective, like, wow, we really have something going here. And it was just very special experience for us to be a part of this. And that we're very thankful that we, took the initiative to actually make this into a reality.
So throughout our first year, or by looking at our first year, we have about 4,000 athletes using Alpha Signs. We've had a little bit over 8 months kind of since our launch. We're going more so off of our hard launch just because that's when we were fully ready to get our product out there. As Diego mentioned previously, we have 21 of the top 25 Division I softball teams not only using our product, but kind of being like behind the scenes with us and helping to advance our product and make it better for everybody else. And throughout this first year, we have a projected annual revenue of $126K. So something else that also happened throughout this first year is that we acquired the Be the Best Baseball and Softball Convention. So this has been going for 50 years. We're actually celebrating our 50th anniversary this upcoming January. So we acquired this just because we saw it as an opportunity not only to build our networking community, but also to connect businesses, coaches, and players from all different levels with different organizations, directors, and kind of just be really a big networking opportunity for everybody. Especially now because with NCAA and the name, image, and likeness rule that was released this year, where athletes are now able to make money based off of endorsements, advertisements, and they can kind of pair up with businesses. We saw this as a huge opportunity and gives us room to kind of explore that going forward and give athletes and businesses kind of a place to work together so that they're able to get paid. And this is a driver for us in terms of innovation and sustainability for our business. And like I said, just the main reason why we wanted to acquire this is really just because it allows us to build relationships, continue to stay close with our large network, and kind of stay in the game, but also connect other people from all levels. So a huge networking opportunity.
So in the next steps, our main focus is that we want to create a product that is useful for everyone. In the creation of Alpha Signs, we saw that as an entry to market. And we have two parameters that we wanted to hit. We wanted to make anything that we create super easy to use and also seamlessly integrated into everyone's lives. And that's how we attack this. So we explored what the opportunity is, and we explored, what is the market. So currently there's about almost 500,000 total college athletes. In terms of prospective student athletes, which is defined as recruitable, it's about 8.8 million. If you include the youth sports segment, that now increases to 60 million. And by 2026, the market size is about 77.6 billion. And this is where these statistics is what allowed us to kind of further refine our approach from the get-go, that we want to make this easy to use and seamlessly integrated. If we could hit those two marks and allow our creativity to take shape, then I think we are onto something very special.
So the next steps for us, this is what we're currently working on. So like I said, Alpha Signs was really our first product and really our entry to market. Our next step for us is to release Alphas, then Alpha Scan. So Alphas is going to be a database for coaches. And it's huge for us just because it's going to be unlike any software that's out there. And kind of what our whole focus on is that we're building an experience, not just an app for coaches. So Alpha's database will have specific features that will appeal to the whole target market that Diego was just talking about. So youth player or youth levels, prospective student athletes, as well as coaches. And all coaches, so not just baseball and softball. So we see this as being a fully integrated database backed by the artificial intelligence and machine learning for actionable user engagement. And kind of to bring it back to what I was talking about in our first slide of our whole goal for this is really just to make the lives of coaches simpler and easier. And an easy way to think about it is really just kind of as like a virtual assistant. So it'll be a way for coaches to streamline all of their tasks, keep in contact with their athletes, whatever it really might be. So whether it's creating itineraries, schedules, ordering, whether it's food, equipment, and also provide recruiting tools for them so that it's really specific. And it's, like I said, just kind of like a virtual assistant. And to kind of bring it back to what I was talking about before as well, really baseball, basketball and football are really the main two sports that kind of integrate technology and use it well. So we're just trying to kind of bring the rest of the world of athletics into, I would say, the 21st century and start us using technology because it can really be beneficial. So we just want to have, a product that is really specific to coaches because the two competitors right now for us that are out there really just kind of missed the mark when making it specific to coaches. And then this is just kind of a quick little background on who we are. I know we introduced ourselves, but that's really all that we have for you guys today. We want to thank you very much for listening to us, and we welcome any and all feedback. So thank you.
So guys, can you kind of walk us through how this works? I mean, you showed us what your intent is to do and all that, but how does it actually work?
So the first product that we have right now for Alpha Signs, it's a software. So let's say you log in, me as a pitching coach at the school, I would go in, I would say, let's say I'm going to create a wristband system for my pitcher. So I go in and I say, okay, she throws fastball, changeup, curveball, rise ball, whatever I want to say. And I go in and determine how many of each pitch I'd like to have available to call so that, let's say she throws 90% fastballs. It gives me that many options as a coach so that I have that many numbers. So I'm not repeating signs and that they don't get picked. So really through our software, you go through and just kind of customize it through each pitcher, each pitch for each pitcher. And then it randomizes all of these numbers for you so that you could have endless numbers to call out to your team. So let's say I make one wristband that's created, then I can simply go and press a button. It randomizes it again. I get another whole sheet. I can randomize it again, get another whole sheet. So each game I play, I could realistically have a new wristband so that my signs are never being picked. So that's the first product that we have. That's what we have fully released. Right now, we're kind of in the development stages of the database. So that's why we don't really have a product yet available for this, but this is what we're currently working on. So having the Alphas database and all of those features available.
So who all has the wristband?
What do you mean by that? So they purchase the software, and if they want a physical wristband, they can purchase wristbands as well. We also sell the actual wristbands. But yeah, so what they purchase is the software.
So Alpha Signs is simply a communication system that's used in the world of baseball and softball. So, historically they give signs, the catcher gives signs, with their fingers, but nowadays the majority of programs actually relay like signs where they give a number that aligns with. Can you show her the wristband?
Yeah. So this right here is really kind of how they would look at it. And I don't know if you can see what's on all of their forums. That's how they look down at it. And that's
so all players would have a band on it?
Yes, a lot. And almost, I would say probably out of the 100% of I'll just go off of college, probably out of the 100% of college coaches or college teams, I would say probably 85 to 90% of teams now use this as like their system for relaying signs.
So I'm going to ask the obvious question. You're in a sport where contact can sometimes take place. What happens, somebody gets hit by a ball or something of that nature. How durable are these wristbands?
They're really durable. They're really honestly just cloth. So it's as if it's almost like sweatband material. So it really like hugs your wrist. And on this inside part, it's a plastic, kind of just like an overlay. So there's nothing that the person could get hurt with, but it probably actually provides some protection, I would say, because it's a thicker sweatband material. So if they were to get hit here, either by a ball or if they hit a person, it definitely wouldn't hurt either person. But if they get hit by a ball, it probably would protect them a little bit.
So the actual sign is not like a screen or anything. It's a laminated sheet. What we do is that we provide the software to create the signs, and in essence, it's pretty much a random generator for the signs. And what makes ours different from the two major competitors is that our software is entirely visually based, because that's how, as humans, that's how a lot of us think. And that's what makes us separate from the pack. Whereas the other ones, it's pretty much as if you're working on Excel, where ours, it's nothing like it. Ours, you could develop an entire pitch calling system in well under 2 minutes. That is much more highly detailed than the others.
I was actually, when I was asking about how durable, I was thinking if it would be damaged, how durable are your products? Or you said it was a plastic part that went over this. How long is it gonna last before I have to get a new one?
Generally, I would say probably at least a year. Sometimes it goes longer than a year, but generally I would say schools usually replace them probably every year, if not every other year. But really depending on, I honestly think like the players that maybe wear and tear a little bit more. So if they're taking it off for some reason, as there's more wear and tear, it could rip, but really, I don't think there's many times. If anything, sometimes it smells just because the athlete is sweating. So when you start washing it, that's when it gets a little bit more wear and tear. But I would say they probably last a minimum at least a year. And it's really just preference of if the coach wants to replace them.
And so you're selling the software and the wristbands, right?
Yes.
Do you produce the wristbands or you buy them from someone else?
No, we get them from somebody else.
And what percentage of your cost is the actual having to purchase the bands to use?
We are able to purchase them in bulk. So realistically, I think we buy them for about $3 or $4, and then we charge about $10 per band, but we offer group discounts. So like if they get them if they also order them from us in bulk, we then give them a bulk discount. So we're able to make a little bit more than full profit back.
So I could order from somebody else and your stuff will work with it.
Yes. Yep. And we know that there's a lot of companies that are out there that also make the wristbands. And we also know that there's other people out there that don't use our software. So we try to make it so that with our products, if they want the wristbands, they're able to fit ours. But at the same time, if they do have our software, and let's say they didn't purchase the actual wristbands from us, they can size them accordingly. And if we don't offer a size, they can reach out to us personally and we'll make sure that we're able to get the sizing for them. Just because we know people have different systems that they like to use and we're not trying to force it on anybody.
And I know you said you're big in baseball and softball. Are you heavily involved in other sports? I'm thinking like football.
Yeah. So our plan of action soon, I would say we wanted to really finalize the software in terms of really getting it finalized for softball and baseball. And now I think we're really at that point. So our next steps, because we know that football also uses these, would be to get into football. And we have contacts to get into that kind of market and scene.
Especially since you're a distance away from, your players.
Mm-hmm.
When you're playing football, as opposed to, something like basketball where you're not that far apart and you can actually yell at them and they can hear you. But football, you got a lot more distance.
Yeah.
So I can see that this would come in very handy, not only for baseball and softball, so that people don't steal your signs and stuff, but also for football.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions that we can take? We'd love to hear any feedback, even if it's suggestions to make our presentation better.
Well, I'm not bashful, so if somebody else wants to ask, I will. How are you connecting with the schools and other maybe sports? I'm assuming you're also looking at not minor leagues. What do they call them? The
professional
leagues.
teams.
Yes. How are you connecting with these folks?
So really right now, just because the market size is there for the younger sports, our main focus has been realistically on college, simply just because we're in that market, and on the travel ball scene. So really the prospective student athletes and like high schools. So even though that's not really youth, it might not be, let's say, the prospective student athletes that will actually play in college, but our big market that we're trying to focus on hitting is really high school level, travel level, and then college level. And honestly, throughout this past year, we started more so just from the connections we already had, just because we started with, let's say, one person talking to them, and it turns into 5 more people, which then turns into 20 more people. So really, we've had a lot of success just kind of talking to our own networks that we already have. But at the same time, we've already branched out, and we already have lists of, let's say, emails of different travel teams that we've reached out to. So it's constant, just kind of like emailing and getting our name out there as much as possible, and trying to form the connections with different coaches from all over the country at all levels.
So you guys mentioned that about 80 or 85% of collegiate teams are actually using the software. Do you have some comparisons for the teams that aren't using it versus the teams that are? In other words, the benefit. Can you show the actual benefit of the use of your product?
So when looking at the benefit, honestly, I think let's say 10 to 15% of the teams that aren't using this software now, I think a lot of it has to do with the head coach. So like for our own example, just because we kind of had a similar situation when we started at Hofstra, the head coach, because he was just involved in the game for so long, he liked the old way of doing things, the old signs. He had his own foolproof system, and he knew it was going to work. So he was okay with not using the new technology. And he kind of put his foot down when it came to, let's say, offensively. I was doing the pitching, the pitch calling. So I was okay with using it. But I think honestly, right now, the 10 to 15% of the teams that aren't using it, it's more so because their coaches don't find it necessary. I think another great example is Larissa from Missouri. She's kind of one of the coaches that we had an interesting conversation with this past year, where she didn't necessarily, she saw the benefit, but at the same time, she trusted her own system and knew that it hadn't been picked in the past. But actually, she just recently, within the past 2 years, became the head coach of Missouri. So the new level of play that she was at, she was competing at such a higher level. She realized that, okay, maybe in order to take our game to the next level, we need to start utilizing these. So I think it's honestly only a matter of time before probably 99% of the schools use it. It's not really a matter of costs or, I don't think that's really a big problem for some coaches. I think it's just them maybe setting aside their old ways or coming to terms with the new technology that's being used. I hope that answered your question.
Anyone else? Any feedback on our presentation? We've done about a dozen or so or more presentations, and we always encourage people to give us any feedback, because every presentation we've improved.
Yeah, I'm going to step in here 1 second. I've got a question, because this sounds really good. Are you concerned about technology actually replacing what it is that you're doing? For example, we talked about football, and I know that they use, they use those big signboards, and then they're also experimenting or actually implementing radio waves to the quarterback, things like that. Are you concerned about that in looking, and I haven't thought about it much, but I hope you have, the technology could actually replace you?
I can
Yeah.
take this.
Oh, sorry.
I can
Okay.
take this part of this question. We don't necessarily see it as any sort of a threat, simply because of practicality. Any time there is the perceived threat of technology overtaking a system like this, we simply created the software to create the signs, which then have to be printed and laminated. But if a new technology comes into the game, by default, it costs more. And one of the things that we have realized in making sales to programs is that the majority just don't have big budgets. It's very few that actually have unlimited budgets, and that's mostly in the Power Five conference and stuff. So our focus was simply to make something that is practical, easy to use, and very competitive in pricing. And like Lindsay said, we saw this as an entry to market. But in terms of actually going toe to toe with trying to push the game by implementing more, sometimes we believe less is more. And that is also the approach that we are taking within our software development. Is we have two rules: is that anytime we approach any idea of creating a software, it does have to be easy to use and seamlessly integrated with anyone. If it's not, there's too much of a friction, there's too much pain point, and we realize that it's hard to convince people to change their ways. But you're 100% right. They are starting to experiment now with sending like radio signals to catchers now, but those are very few and far in between. So for now, we just realized that we have set ourselves very much apart than the two biggest companies out there that also create the signs.
Well, that brings up another question then. When we talk about competition, that's one thing, but have you looked at, you discussed about doing some vertical expansion by going into other sports. I happen to do a lot of golfing. It would be nice to have that on my wrist. I don't know if you've thought about that. Have you looked into vertical expansion where you could take the software program? Do you see other gaps within the sports organizations? I heard you talk about scheduling and things like that. I mean, is there a program out there, a software program out there, or not a software program, but a website that addresses directly these organizations in terms of other needs, such as scheduling, roster layouts, things like that? I would assume the roster aspect is, but as far as the organizational aspect of these associations.
Yeah, so there's two companies right now that do offer kind of, I would say, a structure type of database for coaches. So, and we both have experience using both of them just from our experience at the college level. So with both of them, they kind of approach things that would be beneficial to, let's say, a large organization where, it keeps you on track. It does a basic schedule, let's say, but it doesn't provide anything unique or specific to a coach. So I can go in there and I do this every single day. It basically provides, let's say, when looking at like recruits, it provides me a database so I can go in, see information. I can click on the calendar, see when practice is going to be, games are going to be, that kind of situation. So yes, it keeps you organized, but at the same time, I can't go in and do anything really specific with that. So if I want to, let's say we're traveling this weekend, I want to create an itinerary, which is something I have to do every single week. I can't go in there and have something available to me to either create that and or share it with the team. I have to go Microsoft Word, open up Google Maps, figure out all the places that are close to where we're going. And then once all of that's done, send it to the team. So we're trying to just kind of have everything in one place where, let's say, okay, I can create this itinerary. It will provide the tools for me to do that, send it to the team. Let's say I have to create a equipment, let's say Excel sheet, and I need the girls to put their sizes in it. I have to make a Google spreadsheet. I have to go in, create it, send it to each girl individually, make sure that they're doing it versus, let's say, just sending it to them. They get alerted. They can go in right there, put in their sizes. So we're trying to do it so that it's coach specific. And at the same time with that, that's not really sport specific. Each coach, and I mean, we have a lot of friends within, let's say, the coach scene, so from different sports. So we know the different things that different sports and different coaches are doing daily. So we just want to try to make it as specific as possible. But I didn't even know also that golf, so that would be possible to use the wristband sign for golf. So we're still learning a lot. And I mean, we're like Diego said, we're welcome to all feedback, but that's great. I didn't know golf could even utilize this.
Well,
So.
if you look at the pros, you'll notice that they pull out a notepad every time they take a shot and make notes. I would think that a band might help us in terms of distance, in terms of what we did the last time we were out, things like that. So just
Nice.
a thought. But
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you.
one of the things is that I like your niche approach in terms of dealing with coaches and focusing on the coaching aspect of things. I think that's really good. You two seem to have a lot of smarts about all of this, particularly with a lot of different programs. I would encourage you to do some serious idea generation with regard to other gaps and things like that. I assume you already have, but it seems to me that that's where your focus might be, and stay ahead of that technology a little bit too as well. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much.
Well, speaking of technology, I think I was ahead of where you actually are, because I was thinking your wristbands were actually computers that were feeding information instead of a laminated card. Have you looked into the possibility of something, because technology has changed so much, especially in the world of sports, where you could have something with a small computer chip so that you don't have to have this long card, but you could feed in things to the players? Or is that illegal?
It's a little difficult just because things are so changing when it comes to sports. So let's say something that might be allowed in football might not be allowed in softball and baseball. So we're kind of what Diego was explaining. We were trying to stay as current as possible with the best product we could use that's also affordable. And I think something that we realized throughout this past year is that, yes, a product like that could be very beneficial, but maybe to, let's say, 2% of the market, which is the top 2%. And at the same time, again, yes, it would probably be very effective, but we need to also focus on the 98%, the rest of the 98%. So we are keeping those things in mind, and we're trying to make sure that we stay up to date in terms of what's allowed kind of in the sport, each individual sport. But at the same time, trying to not get too far ahead of ourselves, just because a huge thing, especially, I mean, when looking at college, just because we know the most, I think, about that and like the travel level, is that money is a huge issue. And as soon as product costs start to go up, I would say probably more than
The majority.
max like $300 or $400, that's starting to become a large cost. And the majority of programs can't afford that. So we've already had many situations too, where let's say high school coaches or even travel coaches, because they don't even have really a budget, they're having to purchase the software themselves, but they see it as a huge benefit. So we've had people pay for it out of pocket, and we try to work with them as much as we can, just because we want to get our name out there, especially. And we know that it's a hard, it's a hard thing when you're dealing with not having a budget. But
yeah, also just to kind of roll back on the story of how Alphas came to be, we actually started Alphas right after COVID. So during COVID, I know Lindsay, she started a couple businesses on her own. I also had, for me, COVID was a very good year because I kind of just kind of leveled up my mindset and business and everything on my own. And then when we reconnected at Hofstra, coming back from a COVID year that we have lost in season, we realized that we both, just got ourselves better from an entrepreneurial mindset. And this idea was simply born because we didn't want coaching to be everything. When COVID hit and it canceled our seasons, I'll be honest, for me, coaching used to be everything. I used to identify as a coach. And for me, coaching was the best thing that ever happened, because I realized coaching wasn't everything. And I really enjoyed the balance that it created in my life. And I wanted to make sure that I continue to have that thought. And it's very easy in the coaching world to get wrapped up into the sport to the point where you don't, quote unquote, have a life. And that's something that I don't want to. I want to make sure that, eventually I do have a family and, and have balance in life. And that's something that I know Lindsay also kind of subscribes to, is that like coaching isn't everything. And the more we talk to coaches during our journey in the beginning, a lot of them agreed, because what COVID did is that it canceled all of our seasons, at all levels. So it was a rude awakening for for the whole industry as a whole. So that's when we discovered, well, why don't we, if we're going to create the software, which we were encouraged by our head coach, let's create these two like playground rules. One, it has to be super easy and it has to save us time, because if we can hit that, then we'll be able to, that'll resonate when we're out on the fields talking to our colleagues. And when we approach the conversations from that perspective, which is exactly how it happened for us, we realized that very naturally and organically, we started getting the support and backing, and people were more intrigued of our story. And that's how we got our first client. And then one turned into two. So like Lindsay said, we are focused on pretty much the 98% of people, because, I know that now that we're back in the game, I have a lot of coaching friends that they are once again wrapped up into it. And it takes discipline to try to maintain that balance. And it's not easy. But we want to make sure that if we can attract the majority using those two pillars, those two cornerstones to our philosophy in creating software, then we are pretty confident that we can come up with innovative software that perhaps we're not reinventing the wheel, but we are reframing it in a way that makes it much more convenient, much more easy to use, and also just kind of changes the game in our own sense. So, that's kind of how we've built, and that's been a driver for us over the past year. And that's how we are able to also gain the attraction of all our coaches and stuff. So.
Well, taking what you said and what Lindsay has said, especially you talk about things to make it more efficient and their use of time, because a lot of time, you get into jobs and you spend hours on administrative tasks for little things that could save you a lot of time. It'd be kind of neat, going back to some of the stuff that you're talking about, you were heading toward, that you could create a software package that would, once you built the listed team, then you can have like the uniforms and this, and it all works together. So I don't have to have 15 different things that I'm doing, that it all works together. I know who they are. I know what their stats are. I know what their uniforms are, all of that together, so that I have a complete picture of my team and I don't spend hours this one and then hours on this one and then hours on that one. I could really see that. And that's when you can do multi things like that and make it more efficient. That's when you can go to administrations and say, hey, I got this thing that will do this, and this. It's a little bit easier to sell to administrators when it has a lot of things that will do it much more efficiently. So, and I love the fact that you can do all the stats and all that, because, you need to know, you might want to say, well, fastball or whatever, but you need to know who your batter is. You need to know who your pitcher is. You need to, there's a lot of factors involved. So I think it'd be really impressive if somebody somewhere could come up with a package that kind of puts the stuff together, so you can see a complete picture as the coach instead of segments of your team. Just a thought.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, if we don't have, if there's any questions that come up, I will make sure that we share our email address in the chat, and we'd love to hear from you guys. I know sometimes some of the best feedback and ideas come after the meeting ends, and feel free to contact Lindsay or I by email at any time.
I just shared our email in the chat, but thank you guys very much. We appreciate all the feedback.
Thank you so much for sharing. So if we don't have any further questions, I'm going to take the last question, you guys. What can this community do for you? How can we help?
I think honestly, kind of what we both have been saying is, throughout all of our presentations that we've done, the biggest help that we've gotten from each 1 million Cup community that we've talked to is really just the feedback, because we've been applying everything that we've been hearing, and just kind of the conversation from the questions after the fact really helps us get to thinking about different things that we might not necessarily think about ourselves. But really just the feedback is super important. And We're really just trying to get our name out there. So, and at the same time, think of things from, we're working with technology, we're working with software. So if anybody has any suggestions or any ways that they could see maybe something improved upon, we'd love to hear from you. Or if you just have thoughts or comments in general, it's really just kind of the feedback and how we can improve on either getting our name out there or making our product more special and more specific for all of our users.
Well, I want to thank you guys. Thanks for the fantastic presentation. Good luck on your journey. We would love to invite you to come back. Let us know how things are going. I want to thank our audience today for joining us. It's been a pleasure. I just want to remind everybody that we will not have One MC Fayetteville next week. Of course, many of us will be on spring break, including me. Looking forward to that, but we will return April the 27th. We've got a great speaker coming. Reuser will be coming to tell us a little bit about their business. So you guys have a fantastic day. Enjoy the weather and see you in 2 weeks.